Welcome to ASCC's Concrete Talk. We want to thank ASCC for sponsoring the show. Go to ascconline.org and check out all the great benefits they have to offer. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Today on the show, Matt talks about mixed groups.
Welcome to another episode of ASCC's Concrete Talk. I'm Matt Popoff, and my co-host Rick Lobdell is not able to be available today. However, I have from my ASCC mix group,
Jason Evans with Command Construction
of
Searcy, Arkansas.
And Chris Cardinal of Mark Cardinal Concrete of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Thank you guys for being here. What brings you to Yakima this time? For coming out to my place?
Yeah, we just wanted to come out and hang out with you and try out some equipment and catch up and see what you're up to.
Keeping tabs on me,
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Somebody has to.
right?
Full-time job.
Right. So, in the art of collaboration, what is the exact reason why you're here?
Well, the exact reason is it all started with a conversation between Jason Evans and I about a piece of equipment that you have.
Right.
That's going to do a better job at hopefully my shop than yours.
Yes, that's pretty accurate. So Chris and Jason knew I had a piece of equipment and know that I don't utilize it as much as I should. However, he has a perfect job that is perfectly for this piece of equipment. So, as mixed group members of mine, it seemed like a logical reason to say, "Hey, Matt, can I borrow this piece of equipment to use on your job?" So, of course, I'm absolutely good with it. So, but thank you guys for coming out. It's always nice to have somebody come check on your business and see how you do things every day, whether the last time you were here 3 or 4 years ago, just to kind of give you a quick oversight and overview of how things, small little things you can improve, or tips and tricks or best practices, like we like to say, is you're always going to pick up best practices, and I hope you guys too when you're here. But I always learn something from you guys, and you guys, I hope, always take something away from me, which is great. So, and that's what I do love about this association. But on that note, how long have you guys been with the ASCC?
About 8 years or so.
I'm about 7 years.
Right. And your first events, do you remember?
Jason?
Oh, yeah. I think Lindsay and I attended, my wife, Lindsay Evans, attended Torrey Pines.
Which was the it was the CEO forum back then. The
That's
CLF,
correct.
right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But that was in, that was in San Diego, and we got to go to, was it Nellis? We went to go to Nellis Air Force Base? Or no, wait. I'm thinking of a different one. What's the Air Force Base there?
Yeah.
It's where Top Gun was filmed. How do we not know this?
Yep. I don't know, but I can't tell you at the moment.
Drawing a blank here.
But it was a great trip, and good times, good people, and that's one of my favorite things about the ASCC is you can show up, and not know anyone, and walk away knowing a ton of folks that were. That everybody's very gracious, very welcoming, and you have something in common with everyone because everyone's there because they love working in concrete.
I remember that event specifically. I feel like I always remember the speakers from the CLF or CO forums stand out, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was the fire commander from the World Trade Center, during 9/11, and he told the story about how they were trying to obviously get everybody out of the building, but man, just the way that he told it was almost it was heartbreaking, but it felt like you were there. He was such a good speaker about it. But he talked about how when the building was coming down, they were in the stairwell, and about how people were basically being blown around like confetti. And yeah, it was. I remember that very vividly. But then we went to the Air Force Base and had that dinner at the, what do you call it, the Commander's Center or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was fantastic. So, do you remember your first event?
Oh yeah, mine was the annual in Texas. So
was it good?
It was great.
You remember anything great about it?
Well, I got to meet Chris Turner from Turner Brothers in orientation, and as we all
new member orientation.
So I guess, as they say, drinking from a fire hose, and then you meet Chris Turner, who hopefully will carve some time out of his schedule to join you next in the near future.
I do need to get him on a podcast.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
For those of you that don't know, Chris Turner and us too, amongst Jason Morris, is we're all in a mixed group together, so that would be a good one. But when you guys joined on with the ASCC, I guess why what were you guys looking for as far as joining with the association, or how did you find it, if you remember what brought you to the association?
For me personally, it was just a passion for the product, a passion for the business, and a passion for wanting to learn more, and the ASCC certainly delivers on that.
Yeah, my thing is I ran into Steve Lewis, who's a fellow concrete contractor in Wisconsin, and through conversation we were chatting, and he had mentioned the ASCC and the all the great events they do, and the people and the network and the safety and training parts and the mixed groups. So, that's kind of how I found out about through it, was another contractor who is in our state, in our area.
Mm-hmm. So, which attracted you to it?
What part attracted to it?
That's what attracted you to it.
100%.
Yeah.
Just to try to get around more like-minded people.
Yeah. We'll never get it figured out, right?
Never.
Yeah. And I think, we all three of us come from family-driven businesses of concrete, right? So, I liked your guys' perspective on what's it like to grow up in a family business and family concrete business, and I guess what's the importance of collaboration, not only with the family but also outside of the family. How does that dynamic work? I know that's a big one.
Yeah. So, the thing about growing up in a family business is it's not something that you interview for. You're grandfathered in, you might say, slowly over years. Mm-hmm. And it's always just growing up from an early age, I always just knew that this was something that, working with my dad was going to be part of the requirement. It's just something I was born into, and there was nothing that was going to stop it. Dad said from an early age, your mom's got you until you're 12, and then you're hanging out with me. And so it was every weekend, every holiday, every summer, working with Dad.
Working with Dad.
Yeah.
Right. How about you?
Same process. Started, growing up in the business, learning how to work on the weekends and having fun, wanting to be like Dad. I think that was everybody's kind of quest growing up and learning the business, and that's it was a big part of us growing up. So,
spend a lot of your holidays and weekends and different your summers in high school working for the man. Yeah. What about what do you get from the collaboration, mixed group or any other members of the ASCC or any outside organization also, what do you guys looking for outside of the family business? Just a different perspective or?
So, one of the biggest things I looked for when we did the mixed group, we got started off with orientation. That's where I met Jason. And,
did you guys meet at a mixed group orientation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how we had met. We sat across from each other, and he was like, I finished concrete, and I was like, cool, and it's kind of been friends ever since. So, it's pretty cool. Not a cool story, but it's a concrete story.
Right.
But, that was the biggest thing of getting into the mixed group was trying to find like-minded people that are in the business that, have hopefully been where you're going and kind of can ease the curve of learning, and that was, we met a lot of good people through the years through the mixed group, and, there's just a lot of solid individuals that you could be working in towards a problem and you'd pick up the phone, call Matt, call Chris, call Jason, these guys,
Right.
and they would talk you through, to you, which seemed like a big problem, but to them, they've already dealt with it 15 times.
Right.
So it's kind of can give you a little short course to it. So, that was like, getting into the mixed group was always trying to find that network of people that have been where you want to go.
Yeah, it's invaluable. Being able to pick up the phone and get a different perspective, at the drop of a hat it's invaluable.
And a lot of that advice you get, you're not going to like either.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of time I've reached out, a lot of times where I've been wanting to hear this and you hear the exact opposite.
Right.
So, it's not all what you want to hear. And that's a true test of people's friendships and businesses and where they've been professionally. So that's plus and minus.
Right. Yeah. It's I think for me at least, I think I didn't grow up with my dad around. Of course I've taken over for my dad at this point now, but it's like he was always working, just nonstop the whole time. And it's like, and which was, he was doing what he could do to make payroll, right? That was the most important thing. You got to make payroll, and that, as long as that happened, we had food on the table, which was great, right? So, but he was working a lot, and he didn't get to spend a lot of time with us, with me and my sister growing up, which is, I don't resent him for it or anything. It's why what we have now available to us, and I think, but now, fast forward to now, it's like that's the time that we get to spend together, and he sits on the other side of this ball from me, and it's like we get to spend way more time together now than we ever did before, which is great. And he's like, that mentor for me. It's like I can go bounce ideas off of him and be like, hey, I want a curb machine. And then he's like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. It's like, what do you think you're doing by a curb machine? But then it's like, I could talk to you guys that are like actually like, we've got extensive experience with this, and it's not such a bad idea if you can make it work, right? So, but I feel like it's a better relationship. It's a great relationship, but it's I've really enjoyed the time that I have with him now, and a lot of people don't have that ability to have anymore, So, what does you took over Mark Cardinal Concrete, and of course from your dad. And what's your everyday role compared to his from when you started till now?
So we had, the business started in 1988. So, it was pretty much, you grew up in the business. The trucks were in the driveway, that, your fond memories were going
working
to the
at
shop,
the house,
working at the house, going to the shop and doing what you do at the shop with your dad, and then mom was always around, and it was just you didn't realize how good it was when you were growing up, because it's, you learn a lot of good core values growing up in the business. But with, the biggest thing with the family business is, Lost my train of thought on that one. Re-ask me the question.
That's a good question.
You worded it well.
What from day to day when you first started? What do you do, and what does Mark do versus now?
To answer your question on that, so the company was started in 1988. It was mom and dad at house with the truck, the trailers, and it was kind of just the business slowly evolved. You grew up going to the shop. So basically through when you could start working, you were out in the field working with the guys, and you'd come home at night, you'd talk about the business over dinner, and Dad's famous saying was, "We poured walls," is, you work during the day, my forms work at night. It was very intense. That was his business. Those panels made him money at night, and so you had to report your daily over dinner.
Right.
So now so from where that was growing up, now today, you still have those check-ins with Dad, but they're not a forceful check-in.
Like a mandatory
check-in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how our business is set up now. Dad is still very involved with the foundation crews, and I'm involved more with the flat work and curb and gutter and stuff. So
well, and you never did. You guys never did flat work before, correct?
No. So I graduated college in 2008 from Northern Michigan University in Marquette, Michigan, and I went to school for construction management. So it was really, there was not many construction management jobs available in that market.
Were you looking for something not working for your dad?
Oh, 100% I was.
That's good. That's good to know.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
So then, I was like, well, I'll go pour concrete for Dad and go from there. And I remember my dad goes, "This business runs without you, or ultimately make your place." And he handed me a magazine of Concrete Contractor with Len Swiderski on it with concrete parking lots. And, at World of Concrete, you've talked with Len at, you went to his classes and all those boys. And he goes, "I think this is going to be the next big thing." And I was like, "I don't know anything about flat work."
Parking lots.
Concrete parking lots. And so ultimately, the rest has kind of been history since an article in Concrete Contractor in 2008, I would assume. So that's when we got into flat work, and that's kind of the sector that I was fortunate to run with his oversight, we'll call it. So
does he understand it, or does he just like hands off of it, or just like that's Chris's side, or is it like he still wants to be involved with it, like know what you're doing?
I'm a big firm believer of the checkbook's a scorecard.
Well, yeah,
so as long as you keep it happy for him, the rest of it kind of falls into place. So he does a really good job of letting us do our thing as long as there's no major issues or stuff that's going to jeopardize our working relationship with people. So
as long as we're in the black, everything's fine.
Correct.
But that's typical, that's.
And people aren't mad.
And Mark's a great communicator too.
It's very short and to the point.
Yeah,
Blunt. Yeah, that's a good point.
They call him a man of few words.
How did you get started, Jason?
Yeah, grew up. Dad had a small concrete company in town,
which is not Command Construction.
It's not. No. And I grew up working for him. I've got a little brother that's 4 years younger than me, and he grew up working there also. And a very small crew, 3 to 4 guys working with us. And, we were pouring house slabs and driveways and, metal building slabs and a little bit of paving. And that's what summers and holidays and weekends were like.
And you told me a story about how you were in college, correct?
Oh, yeah. So
that's good.
So yeah, when I
Hold on,
had,
can we put a disclaimer on this for a second?
Yeah,
that we don't suggest this for anyone.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So I will say this: college is a great thing. Higher education is wonderful. It wasn't for me. Even though at the time it was billed as maybe the only way to be successful, in the environment that I kind of grown up in. I had an epiphany one day in English class in college, and I had a driveway on schedule. I was supposed to be forming up and pouring.
Side job.
As a side job,
right.
Of course, there were side jobs since I was, when I was 16. As soon as I had a pickup truck and a driver's license, I was doing side jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And I was looking outside. I was looking at the window. It was a beautiful day, 75 degrees, blue sky. I was like, man, I really would rather be out there putting a driveway in. And I got up and I walked out of English class, and I went and talked to the teacher, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I can't be in here anymore. And I walked out and started,
Never went back again.
I never went back. I just, I had another driveway after that one, and another one after that one, and that was it.
And that snowballed into Command Construction?
Yes. It took a few more years, but yeah, we started Command Construction, and the thing is I've been very blessed to have a passion for what I do for a living, and to enjoy getting up to go to work every morning. Mm-hmm. And even though from time to time it's been hard, a lot of people don't equate working at midnight while it's raining as being enjoyable, and there were some probably not enjoyable moments, but all in all, it was very fulfilling, and it's been a lot of fun.
That being said, what do you think? What is the funnest part about your job? When you grow a business and you grow in a business, your roles change over time. So, depending on what slice of time, we're talking about, the role has changed over the years. I've been very passionate. I was a very passionate crew leader, when I was out there running a crew. You like being out in the field.
Yeah. So historically, the field has been my jam. That's where I'm the most effective. That's where I can make the biggest impact. And, there's just something about being able to take a situation that may not be ideal and making it fantastic,
Like as in a bad pour gone wrong.
Yeah, like absolutely, and you can't make it up. The batch plant broke down. You had 3 guys not show up.
Right.
What do you mean? What do you mean they sent the wrong mix? And maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a tough owner, or maybe it's a tough inspector, and or most of the time when a job starts going poorly, it's not one thing. It's 4 or 5 things that build up against you, right? And so actually knowing how to mitigate those on the front end, being able to kind of work in that environment and make tough situations turn out, just fine. That's a lot of fun for me.
You make it sound like it's very easy.
So, from my perspective, experience is about predicting the future. So if you've already been somewhere, it allows you to head off problems ahead of time, and so that can actually make it easier, And so most people that are coming up in the business, it's not that they're not hard workers. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's that they just lack experience, and a lot of times they just don't know what's going to happen next, or what to do to mitigate a potential problem. Mm-hmm. So
or afraid of making mistakes.
Right.
Exactly. Somebody's going to yell at me something.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really freeing if you've been there before and you know what to do, and you can kind of lend your expertise to a problem. I mean, that's a great feeling.
Mm-hmm. how do you balance the dynamic of, Jason's on the job, like I know he's my boss, but I don't directly report to him. There's a superintendent or a foreman that might be in between you, and how do you balance that?
So today, I try to be very purposeful when I go out on site and do a field visit, because I have a lot of very competent people out there that are doing good jobs, and I have to be really careful not to step on, what they're doing, and be very respectful of that. So the first thing I have to do is be aware of what am I actually trying to do out here today, because I'm not actively running work anymore.
Right.
Right.
You will if you needed to.
I would love to.
Right.
I would love to jump back in there and ramrod somebody's job.
Right.
but more actively, I'm there to support people that are, they're quality folks. They're doing a good job, and I'm there to help them. So if they have a problem that that they need help with, I'm happy to jump in and assist. But for the most part, I just try to lend some encouragement.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Chris? What's the most enjoyable thing about you for concrete work in general, or taking over the family business? One or the other.
Well, I think one of the funnest parts of doing, I think every as a contractor, I think every fond memory you have starts out as something went terribly wrong.
Accurate,
very
accurate.
Like concrete plant broke down, weather pattern shifted, too much calcium in a truck. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff.
I think,
wind kicked up. Like all that stuff is where every good story literally starts from. So that's kind of why, to me, a big thing is, you have all these events that went the way they did, but how you rebounded from it with the people you rebounded from is when it gets good. Okay. And then it's like the people that are doing it, concrete has a lot of people in it that are, got a second chance or a third chance to restart and make something of themselves. So when you get to work with people who have that fight in them and that drive and that, that want to prove people wrong, that's when it gets fun. You're down in the trenches with these guys and gals, and, shit's going sideways, but you're laughing and you're making the best of it. And you get at the end of the day and you're like, man, that was really cool how we all pulled together. Like that culture is a fun part to grow. So to me, it's just, having a good group of people around you, top to bottom, bottom to top, and just working through those challenges, because that's really, like Jason says, we're problem solvers.
Right.
That's just the biggest thing.
Yeah. I don't like comparing to other industries or people or anything, but it's like, you try to explain to somebody how we are as an industry, and like, why do you go on so many association meetings and stuff? And it's like, it's because we'll never get it figured out. It's not ones and zeros. Like no offense to the electrician or something, but it's like, you got 20 conduits you got to set here. There's 20. And I got 5 today. I'll come back and do the next 15 tomorrow. And we don't have that option. We don't have that ability. And I've never been able to embrace that as a concrete finisher coming from flat work. It gives me so much anxiety. And it's even anxiety of just being out on the port with the guys. Like I could go out on one tomorrow and I'm just like, I'm sweating bullets because it's like, man, how are they gonna go about this thing? But it's like you said, it's everybody's calm, cool, collected, smiling, pitching each other shit, and it's like that's the way it should be, And it's I feel like I run my business in the same aspect that they run their business, and so when they come to me with mistakes or problems or something drastic happens, like we screwed up this sidewalk's 5 feet in the wrong direction. Okay, well, what'd we learn? It's like, and they're like, wait, you're not mad? And it's like, well, no, because what are we never going to do again? And, but yeah, you only get one chance, and it's, you don't want to screw it up.
That's the best part, though, is like literally concrete in its own aspect. Literally, you're taking a bunch of materials from the ground, putting some chemicals in it, and putting a very short life cycle, like a workable life cycle span on it, I should say. But it's like that's a part of the thrill is you've got 10 concrete trucks lined up, and that's the clock's ticking. Like that's
Right.
an adrenaline rush that very few get to really experience.
I like what you said about people that get a second or third chance at something, and I think that's one of the things that we could do better as an industry is continuing to embrace that, and I feel like, having kids that are going to grow up in this industry and hopefully kids that will, maybe even come to work for us someday. But just, I feel like growing up, it was the trades were looked at a little less. I think you had a better term for it earlier. I can't remember exactly what you said, but looked down upon.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing a better job of that. As an entire society and culture, I think we're doing a better job of that nowadays. Is like not looking down on those trades, like of this big shift in AI and everything. And it's like AI is not coming for the guy that's hand setting curb and gutter and slope to drain floors and super flats or whatever it might be, right? The AI ain't going to come and replace that anytime soon. And, I think the people, like you said earlier, it's like you get you will get rewarded for hard work. And I think that's the best thing to embrace in our industry is just showing like you can be rewarded well for hard work. I mean, we see these paychecks that go out every day, right? And I think we could do a better job of that as an industry whole. But what do you guys think the entire concrete industry could do better as a whole?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we need to give due diligence to the people that are in the industry and coming up in the industry. Just because they don't have a formal after high school education doesn't mean that they haven't received a quality education. There's a lot of stuff you learn in the field as a trade contractor that it takes time and effort. Trade contractors are training their bodies and their minds, to do a certain project, to do a certain task, and to do it regardless of a lot of times regardless of the weather conditions, regardless of how they feel.
Right.
I think we all have stories about when our dads went to work, when they were, sick or
Right.
we're out on a slab all night the night before. You know what I mean?
2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, 2 hours of sleep, and and by and large, not complaining, just taking care of the business, taking care of the task, and that's difficult. To train your mind to be able to do that, day in and day out, and to carry yourself well, that's a skill. Using tools are like playing musical instruments. To truly know how to use a tool and to make it sing and do its task well. That's a well learned skill.
And some are harder than others.
Absolutely,
Much
right?
harder.
Absolutely.
You want to bang the drums? Go bang the drums. You want to get in a total station? We got the piano for you.
That's exactly right. And to truly know your craft and to plug in, I think that it's time that we embrace the people that do that, and not just in our trade and our craft, but as a society.
Chris, what do you think we could do better as an industry?
I think one of the biggest things is we have there's a lot of younger kids that want to get in the trades. I mean, we do a lot with like the local high schools and trying to get kids involved and, teach them, show them that there is another path out there that's a successful and rewarding path. And, it's a really, I think it's a great thing that one of the high schools does is they have like a signing day where if you take a apprenticeship with that company, that construction company, or just go to work with them, they have a signing day where you get the parents together, you get the grandma and grandpa, the aunts, the teachers, and it really broadcasts in a really bright light that, hey, this is a good career path. Because ultimately, from what I have always seen, is getting the parents to buy into it and letting your child go that direction is always the biggest hurdle. You get a kid that wants to do it, he or she is excited about it, but the parent's not supportive. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest thing, is educating the parents that this is okay. Your child will be fine. They'll be.
Do you think that's because the parents like have this mentality of like, you got to go to college, or you got to?
Well, I think it goes back to every parent wants your child to be better than you.
Right.
And everybody puts a different value and paints a different picture of how that looks. Mm-hmm. But that's where reality needs to mesh in there somewhere of what's going to sustain a good life for your child.
Right.
And I can't answer that for every person individually. I just know statistically a kid's going to do well who wants to work, put in an honest day's work, and just basically put the hammer down when the hammer's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and continue to learn, which I feel like it's endless. I mean, I feel like I learn something new every day.
Right.
I mean, of course, with having you guys here, then I feel overwhelmed and I'm drinking from a fire hose. But what did you say earlier about if you retain 20% of?
Oh yeah. So so much of the time, I'm in these environments where there's just all this information coming at me, and it feels like it's lightning fast. And, I put myself in some of these situations where, there's no way I can retain it all.
You can't consume it.
I can't consume it. I can't process it. I can't file it away. And so I tell myself, look, you're on the hook for 10 to 20% of this, and that's what I try to do is I try to take away 10 to 20% and really utilize it and really put it to use, and then bathe in the information regularly, and try to take away 10 to 20% every time.
You don't want to take like 800 pages of notes.
But that's a big thing that Jason's talked a lot about, Matt's talked a lot about, and my parents talked about it for a long time, but I just never really acknowledged it.
Right.
But it's like being put in uncomfortable situations. And if you can teach somebody at a young age to be put in an uncomfortable situation, it's a good life skill. And we laugh because we have 3 boys and they're in hockey, and hockey's broken down into battles that you have to win. Okay.
Physical and mental.
Physical, especially when your dad's on the bench. It just brings a whole nother layer. But we're teaching these kids to go in these uncomfortable battles on the ice to become better hockey players. And it really kind of breaks down into being a leader, is you want to help the people that are with you get into those uncomfortable situations because it's a part of developing skill. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing that our mixed group does, is they're the first ones to call out something if you're dipping your toe in the water, and you should be going farther because it is okay. Mm-hmm. So that's a thing that, to me, is huge about teaching kids how to do that. And you can elaborate more on it.
Yeah, I mean, my dad told me this from an early age. He said, he'd throw me out. He'd throw me and another guy out and on a job, and there'd be a dump truck or maybe 2 dump trucks loads of gravel, and we'd have a wheelbarrow and 2 shovels. And he'd say, yeah. And
that sounds like a great morning.
100%, And he would say, hey, shoveling builds character. you know, and I don't know how much character it builds, but it does build some skills. You know, when you're doing a monotonous task, and it can be considered hard work, and you just do it all day, your mind goes through phases. You know, and to learn how to be happy, being uncomfortable, that's a skill. And so much of the time, I think as parents, we want to give our kids a better life than we had. And I feel like from time to time, we tend to protect them in the wrong way. We want to protect them from being uncomfortable. We want to protect them from things that they don't like. We want to protect them from things that are unenjoyable. And we're actually hurting them by doing that. And I'll tell you this, for my dad, he actually did not care to protect me from any of that.
Right.
He threw me
Right.
he threw me right in the middle of it. And he held me accountable for being in this space. He didn't hold me accountable for, necessarily shoveling both loads of gravel that day.
Right.
Right. But he expected me to be in the space until he came to pick me up that evening. And, looking back, that was good for me. It wasn't enjoyable, and I hated it, and it wasn't fun. But I did it, and it was good for me.
It built you into a character that we like. So
That's fair.
It worked out all right. How do you, with innovations in technology, I mean, it's endless on where we're at today, how do you bridge that gap of like you get, it's the old school mentality of like, this builds character, right?
Yep.
Like you can hand rod this 20,000 square feet, hand stick it until your bones are brittle. But we got this nice laser screen, a pump truck over here. It's like, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah. So, every company needs to have, they need to have something they can be proud of, right? They need to have a piece of equipment or they need to have, a certain way they do things, or they need to have something that they can have pride in, right? And a lot of times that's technology, a special piece of equipment or something, a technique they're good at or whatever. And we have that at our company, but at the same time, from time to time, we also can be prideful that we do hard things. We're proud that we can do hard things.
Right.
When the pump truck, when something happens to the pump truck on the callback of a third story deck placement, and everybody's like, "Oh man, what are we going to do?" And you just start pulling out the 5-gallon buckets. You know what I mean?
You need somebody to bear down and actually make it happen.
Absolutely. And when people are saying, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?" You say, "Well, it's not a big deal. We're going to fill up these 5-gallon buckets and carry them up the stairs."
Right.
And as Chris was saying earlier, a lot of the good things that happen in our business are built in those tough moments. Bonds are made, connections are made, people are mentored, and as a leader, that's when you grab the first 2 buckets, or
run to your truck.
It may depend on how hot it is that day, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Go get some cheese curds.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I like to relay it to my guys. It's like I do love when it's a 25,000 square foot slab. It's literally a walk in the park for these guys. I mean, the amount of manual physical labor that they have to do on a 25,000 square foot slab pour is very minimal, right? But it's what I like to tell them all. And Steve Lloyd told me something a long time ago. 2 is 1, 1 is none, and that comes your equipment, your people, everything. And I've always thought about that. But what I tell my guys is these are all backup plans. The pump truck is a backup plan, like you said. There's a 5-gallon bucket over there. We can make this happen if we want to. The laser screed's a backup plan, but you got to know how to do it first before we can get there. And I think and that's when you get to see the true colors of people and their efforts and what they're willing to do, and bear down at that point. And that's when it gets hard. And then they really appreciate those pieces of equipment when you go do a job. But also we know they ain't going to keep coming back day after day if your laser screed's breaking down every day.
Right.
If you're constantly having to go hand rod or 5-gallon bucket everything, they're probably going to go find another job that might be a little bit easier.
They're going to find a different laser screed.
Yeah, they'll find a different laser screed for somebody else that's a nicer one.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, but I think Chris, what do you think? I mean, what do you think what is the latest and greatest innovation that the concrete world has seen in the past? Or I guess what has helped you out the most in the last decade of your business?
I'd say the 3D laser screed changed
The parking lots.
our parking lot industry. It opened up a whole new sector for us as concrete contractors, for admix suppliers, for ready mix suppliers. It opened up a huge avenue for a lot of people, and that was to me it was a multi-tiered gain, because we're helping with the environment, we're helping keep more people working. There's more equipment being built. Just the ripple effect of a concrete parking lot is really cool. And then you talk about like the laser screed and the technology of it, and like the broom and cure machine we have now. Like it keeps opening up more solid doors that just keep the evolution going. And that's honestly, I think that's one of the biggest things in the concrete industry. That, because if you look at how people would hand rod 20 years ago,
Right.
I mean, this market wouldn't exist today if we just said this is how we do it and we're not changing.
Sure.
So I think to me that's one of the biggest things. And I mean, all of us at this table right now all have the equipment.
Right.
So we've all gained market share and stuff out of that. So to me, that's my number one.
Do you get to see a lot of asphalt parking lots being replaced in Wisconsin with concrete?
Yeah, it's a big part of our business, and there's local contractors that are concrete contractors, and the removal of blacktop and putting concrete, it's a big market.
It's a no-brainer, and it's very cost competitive from where you're at.
Yeah, I think in our area, it's definitely it's definitely a viable option. So
yeah, we're still trying to get there. The blacktop is just insanely cheap. We're located, and it's tough to compete with concrete. So, what do you think, Jason? What's an innovation that's really changed the way your business has gone for the last 10 years?
Robotic layout. The total station is probably kind of changed things up for us. I remember, scheduling the surveyor for, building corners and this and that. And
because you would use them to lay out your building corners for like a footing foundation.
Yeah. So you'd call the surveyor and they'd put out some building corners, and then you'd pull a 200 or 300 foot steel tape and
square it up,
string lines these days, constructions came so far. In a lot of cases, I find that we're more accurate than the surveyors that we used to hire to set building corners. Even today, when the GCs will call a surveyor, it's very likely that from time to time we'll find a little mistake here or there.
Right. I've noticed it's as I've gotten into the market, the different type of systems that people use for whether it's the excavation guys are using GPS, we're using a total station for layout. The surveyor is using a different total station, and there's so many different numbers. But I like what you said earlier when we were on the job site. It's all about just making everything work,
Right.
And they all need to talk to each other in some way or shape or form. And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to make that mistake too. Like our operator that runs our curb setup, it's like he wants everything to be exactly perfect, like ones and zeros. And again, this is the concrete industry. It's gray. There's no black or white. It's just gray all day.
Right.
And I think that's hard for people to absorb sometimes. But
yeah, and a lot of times we tend to get caught up in the weeds, especially especially when you're breaking into the industry and you want to do everything exactly right. Mm-hmm. You don't want to make any mistakes. You don't want to let anybody down. But really what we're on the hook for is giving the owner the best possible product we can give them at the most economical cost, and it takes a team of people to do that.
I agree. With that being said, I think this concludes our episode.
All right.
Thank you guys for joining me, and thank you guys for coming to my place.
Yeah, good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, I was glad to have you guys.
Appreciate you having us, Matt.
Anytime. The door's always open. So, thank you guys.
See you.
See ya.
We want to thank ASCC for sponsoring the show. Go to ascconline.org and check out all the great benefits they have to offer. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.